Get in the know. Non-stop Vikings talk. It's Purple Daily on Score North and ScoreNorth.com. Purple Daily, presented by Surly Brewing Company.
If I have the film from the first time y'all did it, I'm not trying to let that happen again, especially if we played y'all before. We know what they're trying to do. We know that they're not trying to let me, of course, get open in open space. We got something for it. That's all I can really say for it.
Is the best wide receiver in the National Football League, Justin Jefferson. Although I think there is objectively, Tyreek Hill's making a case, Devontae Adams. Boy, last night? Did you guys watch it? People were ripping Declan in the comment section for saying, like, Thursday Night Football, finally get a real matchup, and it was like two teams with 7 combined wins or something. But
it was a great game.
Baker Mayfield, he hasn't even practiced with the Rams yet. He just comes in, doesn't know the playbook. He's got like a novel written on his forearm. He just daggers the Raiders last night.
What a choke job by the Raiders. I mean, that was they have now lost to I saw this on Twitter today. They've now lost to a quarterback who had no practice time with his new team, and they've lost to a coach who was working for ESPN the week before he was hired.
That's incredible. That is incredible. So Josh McDaniels probably going to be hoping that Bill Belichick stays around for another 5 years so he can go back and be an offensive coordinator or whatever he would do for Bill Belichick if Belichick retired. This is Purple Daily Vikings entertainment, where we just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die. Thank you for making this show multiple times throughout 2022 a top 10 Apple football podcast, like nationally, like among the Barstools and the ESPNs and Ringers and NFL and all that stuff. It's kind of cool to see that happening throughout the year. So thank you guys for helping us build this Vikings community as we continue to follow the 10-2 start to the season. No matter what you watch, by the way, TCL has award-winning TVs for any budget, any space, all with stunning picture quality. And TCL makes more than just TVs. They offer mobile products, audio devices, home appliances. TCL brings you joy and simplicity through innovative technology. Surly brings you joy and simplicity through liquid.
It does. In fact, it brought me joy last night. I had a couple of stray Furiouses left in the fridge, and before the weekend arrived, I caught a couple strays. They were like a couple of strays just sitting in my fridge, the red cans. I'm like, Stella, let's watch some basketball, let's watch some football, and let's enjoy a couple. And folks, the weekend is here. I don't want you to stop what you're doing now because you're clearly watching or enjoying this show on podcast. But here's what I want you to do. Make a note to yourself.
Or hate watching.
But when you're done, I don't care how you're doing it, but when you're done, I want you to go to your fridge because, as I said, the weekend is here, and I want to make sure that you are well stocked on Surly. That might be Furious. It might be Before I Die. It might be Logic Bomb, Controlled Chaos. You know what? So many good options from our friends at Surly Brewing. And, of course, as always, what can they do once they start to sip on a Surly?
Oh, this is I get
this
it.
This is for you.
Participation.
Yeah.
You can show us your cans.
Show us your cans. At Score North on Twitter, at Jay Zolgad. That's it.
I apologize. I also, in that pause, I got duped. Someone sent me a fake Correa contract, so I thought Correa just signed, but he did not sign. I got absolutely duped, and I was trying to check my sources. So that's why I was
you got to look for the blue check mark, but now anyone can have blue check marks. So
don't retweet it. Just don't retweet it.
What's helpful is I actually have columns set up on TweetDeck for like NFL, MLB, and so if it doesn't show up in one of those columns, it's probably a fake, probably a stray, as Jed would put it.
A couple of stray Surlys, baby.
All right, let's get to Feedback Friday here. We turn the show over to you guys. We collect some of the best questions and comments, concerns, critiques about the show, whatever it is that you want to send us. We try to get to as many as we can on Fridays on both Purple Daily and on Mackie and Judd. So, and you can always send us messages throughout the week through the Score North app. There's a feedback tab down there. So Prashant chimes in and says, how much do you think the national narrative of the Vikings being frauds has to do more with Kirk Cousins and less with the team? The 2009 Colts, for instance, were winning close games all year. He says he thinks they were 8-0 in one-score games. I'm looking it up. They definitely played a lot of one-score games They went 14-2,
Wow.
but they started the season 14-0. Holy crap. It's actually a really good comparison. So the Colts started 14-0, but like half of the wins were one-score games. But that didn't seem to be the narrative about that team because they had Peyton Manning, right? So, and I guess if you want to, they also had, they had the 7th best offense. So it wasn't the Vikings are 11th. This is a pretty good comparison right here.
Yeah.
What do you think at this point? Do you think that the frauds narrative is more about the Vikings or Kirk?
I think it's more about the team itself. And I think it comes from a place, and here's the problem. So yes, there are some talking heads nationally who clearly just think this is a fluke and are dismissing them. And that might be Kirk. But I think the overall takeaway from most of the people who find this to be unsustainable are the statistics and advanced stats. So I don't think, are some of Kirk's stats concerning to those folks? Yes. But I think that this is a larger, bigger picture team conversation about one-score games and point differential and looking at those things. So is Kirk involved in that? Yes, absolutely. But do I think that this is the Kirk doubters, the Cousins Crusader haters? Do I think that this is them saying this is Kirk and Kirk can't do it? No, I think that this actually goes to how the Vikings are winning games and their statistical backup to doubt. I just think by December at 10-2, you also have to give them credit.
See, I actually think, it's definitely, some of it is just like the body of work of the whole team. And it's not just close games. It's like they're down by double digits and pulling a win out 3 different times, right? Or they're getting an interception on the doorstep of the goal line. So it's close games and it's what's happening in those close games. It's not like, these aren't like backdoor cover close games in most cases. So I think there's a Kirk factor to this for sure. I think, and rightfully so, because no Kirk Cousins team has ever come anywhere near winning a Super Bowl before. So at least with that Colts team, you could say, yeah, maybe they're not the greatest team of all time as they sit 14-0 because, and I did count it, they had 8 of their 14 wins were one-score games. Now, were some of those backdoor covers? I don't know. I didn't comb through. But you know that you've got Peyton Manning in his prime. He's already won a Super Bowl. He's already, at that point, 11 years into his career, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. So you kind of knew, maybe this team's getting a little lucky. But they also have Peyton Manning. So they could strike at any time in a playoff game. And then they actually won their first 2 playoff games at home in blowout fashion. 20-3 over the Ravens, and then 30-17 over the Jets. So the good news there is a team that had a way overinflated record. So their expected record was supposed to be 11-5. They went 14-2 and started 14-0. And despite them having an overinflated record because of luck, they got to the playoffs and they destroyed the first 2 teams they played because they got to play home playoff games. And, sometimes when you get into the playoffs, weird things can happen. So It's a good comparison. I do think it's like kind of 50% team shade, 50% Kirk Cousins has never been in the deep end of the pool before shade. And those things are valid until the Vikings and Kirk prove the doubters wrong.
Yeah, I think it doesn't help that Kirk is the quarterback of it and that there's the national perception of him not being a big game player. And that's where I think he can really win some people over here down the stretch and probably also, more importantly, in wild card and divisional round weekend. I remember, too, that AFC title game that the Colts played against the Jets. They were down 17-6, so the Jets got off to like an insane start. The Colts rallied back. They go into halftime down basically 2 possessions. Then they end up winning the game big with a 30-17 final, and they scored 17 unanswered points in the second half. So, that Colts team wasn't as great, and I think also I remember a lot of Vikings fans saying that if they beat the Saints in 2009, they would have ran right through that Colts team. But it is a good comparison. Like, you can still overachieve a little bit and take advantage of what was also, by the way, a weak AFC that year. Tom Brady got bounced. You're playing Mark Sanchez and Joe Flacco that year. The Colts did to get to the Super Bowl. It's going to be a similar path in the NFC for the Vikings because this year's NFC is kind of weak too.
Yeah, and I think one more point on this. Nobody was going to call a Colts team from that era a fraud,
right?
Because they had Peyton Manning. Because Peyton Manning's not a fraud. Although some people would argue that once he got to the playoffs, he underachieved and he became fraud.
Yeah, with the Broncos,
that's a whole that's a whole different argument that we don't need to.
I'm just recalling how sad I was.
Judd being pissed that Peyton Manning threw fluttering ducks in a Super Bowl win the day after.
It's terrible.
But what I'm saying is no one was going to call those Colts teams a fraud because they had Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning was like fraud protection. Not frog protection, fraud protection.
Yep.
And because the Vikings have Kirk Cousins, you're looking, are the Vikings for real? I don't know. Well, they have Kirk Cousins. Is he gonna bail out a team that's maybe overachieving and people don't know yet? He has been this year in the fourth quarter, but and for anyone like, well, put some respect on Kirk's name. Kirk needs to earn the respect in January, like all other quarterbacks in the history of the NFL.
I think the smart football fans, though, who are doubting this team are probably largely on defense. I think it's the defense that scares you because the statistics aren't good. I've never been in love with the phrase bend but don't break, because when you do break, it can be extremely ugly, like the Dallas loss was. So I think the smart football fans certainly are going to wait and see if Kirk can prove himself with the spotlight on in the playoffs. But the defense, I think, is what probably scares people, and I don't blame them completely. I mean, you are going to have to come up with some really good defensive game plans in the playoffs to advance, because a lot of what you're doing now, just straight up, I don't think it's going to work in the playoffs.
Worth noting that 2009 Colts team, in their final 8 regular season games, the defense gave up, in 5 of the 8 games, the defense gave up at least 27 points, 27, 31, 30, 29, 34, and they still made their way to the Super Bowl. So
also that Saints team, I believe, lost 3 straight regular season games. So they basically went, the Saints that won the Super Bowl against the Colts, they went almost a whole month between wins, between their last regular season win and their first win in the divisional round of the playoffs. So like, just like the Rams last year where they lost, 5, they didn't win a game in 6 weeks. You go through stretches like that, and hopefully you're not peaking at the wrong times. But yeah, there's a lot of weird comparisons from 2009 on both those sides for this Vikings team.
Very interesting. Michael McDevitt chimes in here and says, "Try not to get triggered, guys. The takes on your show about Cousins have gotten out of hand. Can you not hear yourselves creating an alter ego just to save face? Kirk Cousins."
Yeah.
Kirk Cousins, he says, not Kirko Chains, has been behind it all. It's so frustrating listening to you guys give credit to a non-existent fictional character that you made up, Kirko Chains, and then follow it up with criticism for Kirk. By the way, what other public figure worth millions of dollars is treated like a bigger punching bag? Well, really? Let's start with LeBron James. Yeah. Let's go over to Russell Westbrook. Yeah. Let's move through other sports. Yep. Come on, guy. The man is worth millions and takes ish from everybody, but remains more humble than any other quarterback. Advice for the show: have some decorum. Oh. I do love the show. I love Cousins more than I love the show, however, from Michael. So does he have a point? Are we?
You know what? Thank you. Thank you very much. You enjoy Kirk, enjoy us, and we will take your advice under advisement.
Oh, man.
I'm not going to insult the guy.
I saw Kirk Cousins walk into a phone booth and change into his Kirko Chains
We didn't create Kirko
before
Chains.
That second quarter drive, okay?
His teammates and Kirko did. Nobody made Kirko take his shirt off, okay?
Michael, I think you're taking a fun bit and making it too literal. That is my advice back to you, is to calm down. All right, this one's from Minnesota PTSD on YouTube. Boy, Mackie, you've really done a 180. I know you know in your heart of hearts that Minnesota isn't close to the caliber of Philadelphia, Dallas, San Francisco. Like, I know you know this, he says. I also know that you know Kirk isn't the quarterback on a veteran contract to build your team around. But, man, you have really just said, nope, I'm going to be positive this season no matter what. But in late January, and then he switches to caps lock, you will be the first person to ask the question about Kirk's future.
Yeah.
Still in caps lock. I understand being positive, but you seem more than positive. You seem to be purposely ignoring difficult questions on the defense in the loss to Philadelphia and Dallas. Anything less than an NFC Championship game appearance is a letdown. Well, there's a lot of contradicting things in this. First of all, if you if you Minnesota PTSD believe that Minnesota isn't close to the caliber of Philadelphia, Dallas, San Francisco, but then at the end you say anything less than an NFC Championship game appearance is a letdown, how are those two things coexisting in the same thought? The Vikings are not close to the caliber of these three other NFC teams. But if they don't beat those teams and get to the NFC Championship game, it's a failure of a season. So you might have to reconcile that in your head. And I would respond with two other things here. I agree and have said this to these guys. We do our pigskin pecking order. I don't think the Vikings are on the level of Philadelphia and Dallas yet. I think there's room to get there potentially, but they are not on that level. So I agree with you on that front. Mm-hmm. And on the Kirk front, I think our audience is smart enough to know where I personally, this was addressed to me, so I'll just speak for me. Mm-hmm. I think the audience is smart enough to know where I have stood on Kirk throughout the years. Now, Kirk has, I think he's righted the ship on some things that I have personally criticized him for a lot over the years. Like, number one, you are terrible against pressure. Please be better against pressure. Well, yesterday we laid out all the different ways in which he is better against pressure by a mile this year, thanks in part to Kevin O'Connell, scheme, everything, right? Mm-hmm. I've wanted him to put the team on his back in the fourth quarter when the rest of the game is kind of a disaster. He's done more of that. Awesome. He's checking some of these boxes. So what do you want? You want to just get on the show every day and just keep hammering him for the same reasons? I want to see the season play out. Let's get a full picture of what happens in December and January. And then, yes, we will have that conversation when it's time at the end of January if needed. Mm-hmm. Sorry, end of rant.
Yeah. If they go out in the playoffs in the first round, guess what we'll talk about? Why?
How? Why? How can they fix it? How can they get better? What should they do?
And if Kirk didn't play well, I mean, basically the way that we're talking about Kirk right now is how I envision internally he's being talked about by O'Connell and the team, which is, okay, it's worked so far. That's great. But that doesn't mean that he's going to be your quarterback for 5 more years. That doesn't mean Kevin O'Connell is going to say this guy is perfect. So, yes, you have to wait to see if they get to the playoffs and they make a run. Guess what? Kirk gets an extension, and for a while, everybody's happy. If they get to the first round and get bounced, guess what? Questions are going to be asked not only on this very show, but in Eagan at TCO Performance Center. They will ask the tough questions. I am always confused by this whole thing of, well, this was your stance, so this should just, Kirk Cousins, if you think he sucks, then he has to suck all the time. Okay, but he's actually been pretty good this year as far as what we have expected. So
he's been situationally and high leverage good.
His stats aren't great, but I've ripped him for years for having meaningless statistics. So let's wait and see. And if there comes a point where, guess what? The big boy pants don't fit. Kirk puts the big boy pants on one day and it's a first round playoff game and he can't button them up because it's too much for him. He might have to be replaced.
Somebody on Twitter yesterday brought up a great metaphor or analogy or whatever. He said, for people that are saying, you've changed, look at you, you're a flip-flopper. You're a flip-flop and you've changed your tune on Kirk, right? Yeah. And I explained in a tweet yesterday, okay, I have been calling for him to be better when pressured and better in high leverage fourth quarter situations for years now.
Yes.
He has taken big steps forward this year under Kevin O'Connell in those categories. So credit to Kirk, credit to Kevin O'Connell. And it's like, you're flip-flopping, you're changing your tune on Kirk. And someone said, it's like if your kitchen smells like a dead body. Boy, this kitchen smells. Yeah. We should do something about that. And then you discover that there's like a dead rat pressed behind your refrigerator up against the wall. And you remove the dead rat and this place smells better. You're flip-flopping.
Yeah.
Now you think the kitchen's great. Yeah. It's like,
you fix the problem.
Yeah, the problem is you were the one that was enjoying living in a stinky kitchen all this time. You should have to still sit in your stinky kitchen.
I know.
Anyhow.
Oh, okay.
God. You like that? You like that?
Cade chimes in here. Would you rather have Madison, Kene Nwangwu, and Ty Chandler, who's back on the active roster now, or Cook, Kene, Chandler next year? Personally, I'd take Madison. He has shown some progression, gives you 3 different types of backs instead of 3 similar. Kate, I would propose a third option because I don't think there's any chance Madison is on this team. He's a free agent. Someone's going to give him some money to be a backup or something, or maybe a starter. I don't know if Dalvin Cook's going to be on this team next year. You can start to get out from underneath that contract this offseason, and they're going to have to start getting a little younger, a little more spry. And I think this is a general manager now that views positional value differently than maybe Rick Spielman did. He's not going to pay linebackers, safeties, and running backs more than he's paying cornerbacks, edge rushers, wide receivers. So I could see a scenario in which it's Kene Chandler and some other running back that we aren't even talking about right now, but that makes a lot less money.
I think Kene Nwangwu has no chance of playing consistently because if he could, he would right now. There would be packages designed. It might not be a ton, but he has spent 2 years with 2 different coaching staffs, which have ignored him essentially. Now that does not mean that he is not, a very proficient kick returner. So I think he's got a place on the 53. Ty Chandler, I think that he's got a future. Madison. So the thing I'm curious about there is I'm curious if he's going to get paid because I like him. But he also plays a position, and it just takes one team, but he doesn't play a position at which I think teams are tripping over themselves to pay guys in March, unless it's a team trying to keep one. And I do think you're right on Cook, because here's the thing. I think in reality, if they could, the smart play, and I don't know if this would be allowed, but the smart play would be to look to move on from Thielen with that contract and with what you're going to get now. And he is just flat out a descending player. Yeah. Unfortunately, if you look at his contract, it's very favorable to him staying here. Like, it's going to be hard. Yeah. You don't save a ton.
He's going to be one of the highest paid players on the team next year, and it's pretty ironclad.
So yeah. I think he's back. And if he's back, people have to go. And so I think it could be Chandler. I think Cook is gone. I think you see if you can retain, if possible, Madison. Or guess what? Chandler, and you draft one. I think the ship has sailed there, though. Like this notion, because I thought the same exact thing. Trick plays occasionally. I mean, he's incredibly fast. They've seen things in practice that we clearly have not, that they don't like. So I don't think in year 3, he is all of a sudden going to get a large package of plays. I think he is a guy that they like to return kicks.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, it wasn't like Nwangwu was a workhorse running back in college at Iowa State. He was a kick returner and like a backup running back. So he's had this sort of weird career to this point where he's been mostly a special teams guy. We have a couple more that are addressed personally to Judd, and then another one to me here in a second. But if you're looking for an easy and fun way to play daily fantasy this weekend, let me turn your attention to Prize Picks. You pick between 2 and 5 players and an over-under on their projections, and you can win up to 10 times on any entry. It's always kind of fun, too, to look at, what does Prize Picks say about Kirk and the opponents, and so I'm excited to check that out in the 48 hours leading up to the game, and I'll post a tweet sometime this weekend with a couple of my more interesting things on the slate. But you can do multi-sport entries. You can do an NBA with an NFL, maybe a PGA, which is firing up again, and MMA or something. So check them out. Promo code NORTH. Prize Picks will match your first deposit up to $100. Promo code NORTH, and that lets them know that we sent you. You can help the show that way. PrizePicks.com and the Prize Picks app. It's daily fantasy made easy. Finch Home Solutions, also a great supporter of ours here, and a supporter of those of us that don't really know what we're doing around the house. Let's just be honest.
Absolutely right. So Judd is good at a few things at home. He's good at the dishes. He can shovel a sidewalk. Let's see what else. I have a load of laundry going downstairs right now because you know what? Darn it, I'm good at that. But you know what? I get nowhere near anything electrical, right? So anything that goes wrong, I have no clue. I can't fix it, and I need help, and so do a bunch of you, and that's where our friends, as the train goes by, at Finch Home Solutions come in, because it only takes one call to Finch to get any electrical issues in your home solved. You know what? Christmas lights, you plugged them in, right? It's the Christmas season. Hey, kids, look, and the Christmas lights don't go on. Guess what? Finch fixes that. need work done to get that hot tub installed, because electrical work needs to be done before that winter hot tub goes in. Finch Home Solutions solves that. Do not wait, though, until something goes wrong. Get it fixed now. Finch is offering a free home safety inspection to all of our listeners as well. Be sure to tell them that you heard about Finch, as Phil just said, for Prize Picks on Score North, because there are special deals, and that helps us as well. FinchHomeSolutions.com, 612-357-2604, FinchHomeSolutions.com.
All right, back to the feedback here. Hollywood Frog has a question, and he starts. I don't know if he wanted me to ask you this in private, Judd, but I'm just going to read it on the show here.
Oh, go right ahead.
He says, Mackie, I don't want to ask Judd this because he won't respond truthfully. Is there beef? Is there beef between Judd and Alex Boone? Judd is on literally every Purple Daily episode except Tuesdays with Boone. After last season, Boone's episodes were the most popular on your channel, but he inexplicably disappeared for months. I'll explain that in a second.
Yep.
You and Declan talk all the time about how much of a workaholic Judd is. He even came back to the show just days after an appendectomy, but he doesn't want to be a part of your most popular episode. Whenever you mention your conversations with Boone, Judd just gets quiet or changes the subject.
Oh, wow. Judd.
Interesting.
I do?
He even blocked me on Twitter and called me an idiot after I brought up Alex Boone to him. Judd, why are you blocking people on Twitter? Hollywood Frog. I don't know what his Twitter handle is. This is just a note.
Hello, my honey.
Yeah. I blocked a guy a couple of weeks ago who continued to take shots, and then he said he was going to block me. So I got on before he could block me, and I blocked him because I ordinarily mute.
That sounds really mature, actually.
I think I was drinking.
He continues. Judd and Alex seemed to be friends last year. Was there a falling out? P.S. A lot of this can be said for Declan, too. Boone loved Declan's Fire Somebody's Ass segments last year. Will we ever see another Boone podcast with all of you guys and Boone? I'll explain on how I view the situation, okay?
Yep.
I don't think there's been a falling out between you guys. Maybe you can address that. The reason Alex, and he might do this again this year, Alex, his main thing right now is he runs an offensive lineman training center next to Twin Cities Orthopedic Performance Center. So he is training like college offensive linemen. I think that maybe there's some high school kids in there, but it's mostly college offensive linemen. They're like bringing dudes in from outside the state. So he is working to build that business, and that takes up a lot of his time. Plus he has like 4 kids. He's got a big family. So he isn't able to do media all year round with his schedule right now. He actually turned down some national stuff and just so he could do Purple Daily with us. And the problem this year was his schedule was only open to record literally like 10 p.m. or later on weeknights, Central Time. And so I told these guys, I will do it every week for sure. Like, let's make sure we're doing it. You're welcome to join if you want to. No pressure. Everyone's working their butts off. I don't want to make you guys have to come back at like 10 o'clock p.m. if you've already done a bunch of stuff. So that's how I view it. I don't know. Did you guys have a falling out of some kind?
No falling out. No falling out. And the Frog, you've got 2 separate Twitter accounts, and you're not blocked. I just looked. He's not blocked by me.
Oh, wow.
So I'm not quite sure exactly
Hollywood Frog
where that came from. But no, and I didn't think I changed the subject. Sometimes you talk about what he told you about certain plays, and we talk about the plays.
Oh, then
like
you just
I guess I don't reference.
You just slide off camera.
I guess I don't reference.
About why.
I mean, I don't think that there's anything wrong with us. I mean, I'm not quite sure what happened.
He loves you, man. He loves.
Yeah, no,
if you guys want, you guys are welcome to jump on. I think probably next Tuesday again. We're gonna do another Trenches with Boone episode.
That's a big. If I'm not mistaken, Tuesday night is a pretty prolific wild hockey night. Lots of times, like there's a bunch of games there. In fact, I think we recorded, Dex, if I'm right on this, we recorded with Realistic Randy last year at night on Tuesdays. Yes. And like we were trying to get home from the games and then do a Judd's hockey show.
Yeah, it was a lot.
And so that's why. No falling out though.
And we also have if you just watch or listen to Purple Daily, we also have Mackie and Judd as our other daily show in which we talk about all the other Minnesota sports. So
I mean, Boone's great. Boone's great by himself. Like he doesn't need 3 slappies. to be.
Feels disingenuous. I can hear the hatred in your tone for Alex. There is Hollywood Frog. There's no controversy. It's just and plus, like, Boone doesn't. Yeah, I just put a quarter in Boone and talk minimally, and he just runs with it. So
you mean me, like me with Dukes on Bonus Scoop on Tuesdays?
Yep.
Hey, Doogie,
exactly.
what's up? And another thing, there's going to be 18 scouts at the Indiana Purdue game.
It's great. Okay, here's one addressed to me. I think this is on Twitter. This is from Ben Medlin, 34. At Phil Mackey, you fake bald bitch.
Jeez.
And I just responded with laugh out loud. Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to say.
I sort of like that introduction.
You fake bald bitch. He goes, imagine being a sports writer for a team you don't even like. I'm not a sports writer.
Not a writer.
I used to be a sports writer like 10 years ago, and it had a blast. Definitely not a sports writer anymore.
Yeah.
Imagine being a sports writer for a team you don't even like, and as soon as we do something bad, you got a lot to say. You are the worst effing thing in Minnesota sports, you dog bleep eating gremlin.
Wait, hold on a second.
Fake ball bitch and dog bleep eating gremlin are two great insults. I will give him credit.
I love that, but so is he saying that you don't like the Vikings?
I think what he's saying is he's having a hard. If I could be his therapist for a second, he's having a hard time when someone criticizes the Vikings. But as we've said, it was like 3 years ago that we started doing this show every day, podcast, YouTube. We turned it into a 365-day-a-year show. And Matthew Collar used to host the radio version of Purple Daily like 3 years ago for, 12 months.
Yeah.
And he's critical as needed. And we're not just like homers. We're going to criticize as we see fit. We're not always right. But we got a lot of questions 3 years ago, people asking, you guys even like the Vikings? Why are you being critical of the Vikings? And we're like, I suppose we should explain that to the audience. We are critical of the Vikings because we hold them to a standard, and we tell you that standard at the top of every show. We want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl. And so if they're not, like, at least on a multi-year plan heading down that path, then if it doesn't align with Super Bowl, we're not just going to blow smoke up their ass every single week. We're going to be critical. And I think guys like Ben, lashing out at me, a sports writer, for being critical. Maybe there's a different show or platform he should turn to if he doesn't want critique of the Vikings. That's my guess.
Guess is that Ben
or therapy.
I guess my guess is Ben comes from that world. And so because I feel like three years ago when we started to get questions like that, I feel like there was a lot of therapy work to do with saying kissing their butts is not the best thing, because there's certain media outlets in this town that kiss their butts. Yes. And I think that had become so the norm, but I think that had become so the norm that people were like, why are these guys doing a Viking show if they're not going to just talk about how great the team is? And then I feel like now that our outstanding group of viewers and listeners totally get us and like what the clear-cut mission is here. And so, but I think guys like Ben come in and they're like, oh, this is wrong. You guys are, you guys should be praising them continually. And by the way, at 10-2, we have been as positive as you can possibly be.
I would also say that if you're hopping on Twitter to call a stranger a dog bleep eating gremlin and a fake bald bitch, you might want to just like take a deep breath. Maybe I was going to say take a sip of Surly. You might want to stay away from the alcohol, actually, if you're that emotionally triggered.
It's really good.
It's really good.
I mean, it almost sounds like a punk rock.
Really.
It sounds like a 1979 CBGB's punk rock band.
It does kind of.
All right, please welcome to stage now, fake bald bitch. I'm a fake bald bitch. I'm faking I'm bald. I shave my head every day. I knock people over on the...
That's apparently my theme song right there. That's going to be in my head all day.
It's like the Monkees. Hey, we're fake bald bitches.
Robbie Bruzik chimes in here. Feedback Friday. Do you guys think the main reason the defense is better in the red area boils down to it being easier for our players who may have lost a step, just having less grass to cover? Even Pop Zolgad could cover a 5-yard area in a red zone coverage. Yes, maybe that's the whole base of the defense. It's leaky between the 20s, but becomes better as the shell gets smaller.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. You're not asking Jordan Hicks to cover 25 yards of space against a Pollard or a tight end or something, right?
And in fact, on Sunday, Jordan Hicks made a great play against Berrios, correct? For the Jets. That was a great play. Why? Because it was condensed. The red zone is actually, I think, a fairly tough zone to navigate offensively. And so,
absolutely.
yes, I think, you know what? You know who's been great there? I'm willing to bet that he has a great PFF grade there. The Duke of Shelley. No, the Duke of Shelley.
Yeah, he had a nice breakup this last weekend.
And he had one 2 weeks ago as well against the Patriots. Why? Because it's condensed. That's a tough play. Like, I think red zone touchdowns look like they're simple. Like, yeah, of course they scored. Yeah, they're in the red zone. But I think when you are in that tight of zone, it's huge defensively to, as he wrote, he's exactly right, to actually you don't have to cover as much territory, and you can probably get in the end zone a little more handsy at times than if a guy is basically going to beat you and you grab him.
Yeah, and the Vikings have some smart veterans on that. Harrison Smith, Patrick Peterson, Eric Kendricks, Jordan Hicks. There's some dudes, Zadarius Smith, Daniil Hunter. So if speed becomes less of a factor and being in the right position and smarts sort of gets heightened, then yeah, it's not as shocking that the Vikings have had some huge plays in the red area to ice games. Tim Hamill says, did you guys notice KOC wore a Justin Jefferson hoodie during practice last week? I love the video and was utterly delighted to see the coach wearing his star players' apparel. I did see a clip of that. Have you ever seen a coach do that before? Maybe I missed the day that Mike Zimmer walked around in one of those Kyle Rudolph Duck Duck Gray Duck t-shirts, but I'm guessing that never happened. It is, and when you watch the post-game stuff, I mean, KOC is doing the, sort of the bro hug with players like you would see if they were just teammates, because he's in his 30s.
He's one of the guys.
He's one of the guys, but without it being, he's one of the guys, but he's also the guy.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the important distinction to make there.
He very much, and this is a credit to his skills. He very much reminds me of a quarterback, which he was, unfortunately, physically not a great one. But if you watch his demeanor, watch how he runs things. He certainly, I think, gets mad when it's necessary. But most of the time, especially in crucial situations, he's going to bring positivity. But when he delivers the message, it's essentially what we have talked about on this show forever, as far as what you want from a quarterback, because he's got control. I've never seen one where I think, you know what, this isn't great. And it's why I give them credit when things are going bad. What happens a lot of times? Sideline's totally calm. Sideline doesn't go. I mean, we can debate luck, blah blah blah. But if you want to look for 5 primary reasons why this team has won 9 consecutive games by 1 score or less, I think one is look at the calm, cool, and collected way that they approach things, and then go back and watch the sideline last year and how Mike melted down and how Mike hated close games. He always said that, let's win by more. We got to win by more. I haven't heard Kevin O'Connell say once, yeah, he talks about corrections. He talks about things that need to improve, but he doesn't lament wins. And I think lamenting wins causes your players to get uptight.
Yeah. Matthew chimes in here with, hilarious. Actually, Matthew chimes in on Twitter with 2 things. One, he says, catching up on your videos. I'm a few days behind. You guys post too much. Laughing emoji. And it's a screenshot of us doing Feedback Friday from last week on Mackie and Judd. And we are literally wearing the same thing, all 3 of us. Declan's wearing his Puma. Actually, you know what? He's got the hoodie on. It was a dark, looks like a hoodie-less Puma shirt. I'm wearing a gray hooded sweatshirt, and Judd's wearing the gray Park Tavern shirt with a dark undershirt.
I believe this is actually from Wednesday.
From Wednesday?
Yeah, because we did a Vikings feedback section. We did a Vikings related thing before. Write that down. This is from 2 days ago.
Did we? Okay, so we're even worse.
But yes,
I wear the same thing constantly.
It's a different gray hoodie for me. I can't speak for Judd's Park Tavern.
I got one.
A cartoon character,
and I like it. I'm wearing it.
And then he says, it's weird how you guys have some Vikings videos on the Score North YouTube channel, but not on the Purple Daily YouTube channel, and vice versa. Makes it hard to track sometimes. Well, so I guess the best way to explain it is we have two main shows that we do every day: Purple Daily and Mackie and Judd. Purple Daily is solely Vikings discussion. We got different bits and benchmarks and different things. And then Mackie and Judd is sort of an all-seasons Minnesota sports show. But right now, we just happen to be talking a ton of Vikings on that show as well. And so we put Purple Daily as its own YouTube channel. Mackie and Judd falls under the Score North YouTube channel. But if you just consume our stuff on YouTube, then I guess you wouldn't think of it as like compartmentalized. You just click on videos. So I guess it could be kind of weird, but that's how we have Mackie and Judd, Purple Daily. They're all part of the Score North family. I don't know. Maybe there's a different way to do that long term, but that's how we're doing it right now. A couple more here, and then we can wrap. Drew V says, my dad is 65 years old and has endured his fair share of Vikings heartbreaks. A few years ago, my dad developed a 10-win rule to protect himself from unnecessary pain. With this rule, the Vikings aren't appointment viewing until they notch at least 10 wins. Once they hit win number 10, it becomes permissible to emotionally invest. We have eclipsed the 10-win mark pretty early, and the casual Vikings fans in my family are mixing up the purple Kool-Aid. At the same time, the analytics and the eye test say that we aren't necessarily a Tier 1 contender. What advice would you give to my family to protect themselves from the likely sting of a playoff loss while holding out slim hope for a Lombardi trophy?
Oh, this is a very, very tough one. Okay, first of all, I'm going to guess that your dad certainly came up with a 10-win rule in the 16-game season. So it should be increased, correct, to 11 wins.
11. So just give it a minute here. Yep.
Yeah, exactly right. Hold on.
Hold
on. Wait through at least the game on Sunday, or perhaps a week after that, if the odds makers are right on that one. Other than that, this is tough, though. I mean, if this team 10-2, 11-2, hard not to invest. I certainly get the trepidation. Totally get it. But my God, I mean, this is the type of year 2009 for sure was, 2017 was, 98 for sure was. I mean, if you're not going to invest, then you're never going to, right? Like, what are you going to get? Like, this is a special year. Like, you don't get here. Like, you can't just assume, well, they might not win this year, but next year it's going to be the same, and they're going to win a Super Bowl. So I would suggest that if you are a Vikings fan, it is inevitable that you have to invest right now.
Well, and I never understand this about the way some fans try to protect themselves. Unless you're a Patriots fan for 20 years between 2001 and whatever, or like any Boston sports fan, I guess, from 2001 till whenever.
Right.
Or a Yankees fan in the 50s, Oh,
I'm going to
your sports fandom is largely going to be spiked with disappointment. Like, your purple Kool-Aid's going to be spiked with something that's going to make your stomach hurt almost every year. And for Minnesota sports fans, it's spiked more often than other fans. But I think the way I sort of cope with that is obviously we are as invested as anyone. I mean, we literally do this for a living on a daily basis. And we are just immersed in all of the Minnesota sports BS for our whole lives.
Yep.
And so I think if you can somehow be emotionally attached, but not let it completely derail your life, and or look at it as kind of a fun cycle. Like, okay, if this is what I'm thinking, they're probably going to get beat in the playoffs. The Vikings always get beat in the playoffs, right? So let's say they get beat. Let's say they get to the NFC Championship game, get beat by the Eagles. I'm already reconciling in my head, okay, it's going to be really fun then starting the day after that for like the next 6 months to figure out, okay, what can they do in free agency, the draft, Kirk Cousins, like then you start spinning it forward. There's always something else to jump to after the disappointment.
That's fun for us. But
it's fun for fans. That's why this show is so.
Agreed.
This show is the home for that coping, I guess, is what I'm saying.
But the fan investment, though, is the games and special years. And like if the Vikings weren't good, then yes, you get to the season's done. What's next? But like when you invest as a fan and you don't, and your outlet is those games on Sunday, and then you get to the NFC Championship game and they get beat. I mean, I feel for you, but that's the experience, right? I mean, what's the difference in some ways? What's the difference between being a diehard Vikings fan? And I mean, we know there's a ton of people that love this team and a parent. Because your kids, you know what? Your kids can be great, right? And there'll be great days. And some days they're going to come home with a report card.
But they're probably going to be dumbasses.
But they're going to disappoint you. Like they're going to do stupid things. And you're not done then.
But
you
they're
don't bail.
probably idiots who are going to fail.
But I mean, they're going to have good, third grade might be great. But
your kids are probably ugly. That's what Judd's saying.
But then math gets to be a problem in fourth grade. And now they're coming home with a bad report card. You don't kick them out, So like that's the investment.
And a shiner. Yeah.
It's love. It's love. You love the team. You got to invest.
No, it's fair. It's a fair point. It's life is about hardship.
It's messy.
It really is. Life is about hardship. Being a sports fan, and more specifically a Minnesota sports fan, is about coping with hardship. So why don't you just walk in with both eyes open, man?
Life is wide left.
You're probably going to get smacked in the face in a Vikings playoff game, but it's going to be fun from now until that happens. It'll sting for a minute, and then it'll be fun trying to figure out together on this show how we can cope and move
therapy.
Forward.
That's why we're here. But yes, life is wide left. Yep. Some days your plans are going to go wide to the left.
That's a good shirt idea. I'm going to write that down. About it. Life.
If they lose, we can use that because I will say this for our show, we're going to have some pieces to pick up if they lose, like first round or in the conference championship game.
Does there get to be a point where, because I don't think the general fan base feels like it is Super Bowl or bust. I do feel like it's kind of this, wow, this is sort of unexpected success. This is fun. If they get to the NFC Championship game, I'm not saying it won't be devastating if they lose because they're going to get that close, but I think there's going to be a semblance of hope. Like when they lost in 2009 and 1998, to me, it felt like the closing of a window for sure in 2009. This doesn't for me right now, but it'll be devastating almost regardless how they lose. But
41 donut in 2001, right? That loss, and then I always thought the 2017 loss, while painful, when you just get drubbed, it's embarrassing. But I think it very much depends on what the game looks like. I mean, if you lose late, if you lose close, 2009 was devastating. 98, devastating. Why? Largely because of how you lost those two damn games. And so I think if you get to the conference championship game again, and it's basically plays out how much of 2022 has, but you're on the wrong end, the therapy that we're going to have to embark on is going to be very intensive.
Mm-hmm. You know how Maya Mackey copes with disappointment, heartbreak? I was going to say maybe like eating your feelings isn't always the best thing, unless it's Nutrisource.
Yeah, that's good.
In which case, eat away, Maya Mackey. She was very excited this morning to dive into her breakfast, and then she plopped down for like a 2-hour nap, and then took her outside. She has kind of a weird schedule, but it's her. Her gut and digestion health is on point thanks to our friends at Nutrisource, Judd, and they've got all sorts of great products, including those training treats that Stella likes to sit by.
She does, and your dog is young and spry, and that's fantastic. That's fun, right? Stella, she's a little long in the tooth. She's a little bit old, but you know what? Nutrisource has absolutely positively kept her running around. Gut health is great. I think her joint health has actually improved since she began to eat, as you can see there, the training treats and also Nutrisource's food as well. So yes, I think no matter the age of your dog, Nutrisource is the place to start, because there is nothing better than seeing your dog healthy and happy, young or old.
Amen. We will be back with you for Purple Picks tomorrow, and then Vikings Vent Line right after Vikings Lions, the underdog Vikings against the 2-point favorite Lions on Sunday. That's the most fan-friendly interactive show in all of Minnesota sports. And be sure to click the subscribe button on the Purple Daily YouTube channel to get a notification when that show goes live right after the game. We'll see you guys tomorrow, Purple Daily.